Have you ever looked back at a money decision you made and just thought, what was I doing? Maybe you sold a winning stock way too early or held on to a loser for far too long. Well, guess what? It's not just you. It turns out your brain has a mind of its own when it comes to money. So let's dive into the hidden mental glitches that are secretly running your financial life.
Okay, so for the longest time, the world of finance was built on this idea you see on the left, the rational investor. Kind of like a financial supercomputer who always makes the perfect call. But then, behavioral finance comes along and shows us what's really going on. The reality, on the right, is that we're human. We use shortcuts, our feelings get in the way, and you know what? We tend to make the same kinds of mistakes over and over again.
And that really brings us to the core question here, doesn't it? If we're smart, if we have access to all this information, why do we so often mess up when it comes to our money?
Well, the answer is pretty wild. Our brains are hardwired for efficiency. They use these super fast mental shortcuts to make snap judgments. And look, these things are great for, say, spotting a threat in the wild. But when you apply those same shortcuts to the complex world of modern finance, they can turn into glitches that lead us way off track. And these glitches, they basically break down into two main types. The easiest way to think about it is this. One is an error of the head, and the other is an error of the heart. A thinking error versus a feeling error. Understanding that difference, well, that's the whole key.
All right, first up, we've got cognitive errors. These are your classic thinking traps. They happen because of faulty logic, maybe some bad math, or just blind spots in our memory. But here's the good news. Because these are logic problems, you can often fix them with better data, a bit of education, and just a more disciplined approach.
And then you've got emotional biases. Oh, these are way trickier. These come straight from your gut, your impulses, your intuition, all those feelings like fear and greed. Yeah, you can't just throw logic at these and expect them to go away. These biases have to be managed, not necessarily erased.
All right, let's dive into those thinking traps first. We're going to look at a couple of the most common cognitive errors that trip up even the sharpest people out there.
So first up is a huge one, confirmation bias. This is when you've already decided you like an investment, and from that point on, it's like your brain becomes this personal search engine that's hardwired to only show you results that prove you're right. You go looking for proof, and you just kind of conveniently ignore anything that says you might be wrong.
So here's what that looks like in the real world. Imagine a portfolio manager. She's getting nervous about a stock that's not doing well. But instead of seeking out a different opinion, she calls up the one analyst she knows still loves the stock. She hears exactly what she wanted to hear, feels that wave of reassurance, and holds on, all while ignoring a mountain of evidence screaming, "Sell."
Okay, next up is a really fascinating one called framing bias. This is all about how your decision can completely change based on how the exact same information is presented to you. The facts don't change, just the story around them. Let me show you exactly what I mean with this killer example.
Okay, look at this. You've got to choose a portfolio. When the risk is framed as this wide range of possible returns, your eyes probably jump to those big, scary negative numbers, right? That minus 22% for portfolio ABC looks absolutely terrifying. So a lot of us would play it safe and maybe lean towards portfolio XYZ. It looks cozy and positive. Now, just hold that thought.
But what about now? This is the exact same data, people. The only thing that's changed is that risk is now framed as standard deviation. And all of a sudden, that scary portfolio ABC with its awesome 10% average return looks a whole lot better, doesn't it? The risk didn't change one bit, only the way it was packaged. I mean, how crazy is that?
Okay, so we've covered the head. Now let's talk about the heart. The feeling traps. This is where your gut instincts hijack the driver's seat and tell logic to take a hike. And maybe the biggest, most powerful emotional bias of all is loss aversion. It's an ancient survival instinct, really. For our ancestors, avoiding a threat was way more important than finding a reward, and that wiring is still in us. Financially, it means the pain of losing money feels way, way more intense than the pleasure of an equal gain. This slide just nails it. I mean, think about it. Gaining $1,000 feels great, but losing that same $1,000? Ugh, studies show it hurts about twice as much. This lopsided feeling drives some seriously irrational financial decisions.
And that leads directly to this really common mistake called the disposition effect. Because we hate the pain of locking in a loss, we'll hold on to our losing investments forever, just praying they get back to even. And at the same time we get antsy with our winners, we sell them too quickly to lock in that good feeling, terrified it might disappear.
We end up holding our losers and selling our winners, which is the exact opposite of what you're supposed to do.
All right, another big one on the feeling side, overconfidence. Basically, it's when you have this unshakable faith in your own gut, your own knowledge, your own predictions. You genuinely believe you know more than you do, and that you can control things that are, well, completely out of your control.
And wow, this quote right here is it's a perfect, almost chilling example of what that sounds like. This analyst gets asked about the risks, about what could go wrong, and he doesn't just disagree. He says the very idea is unrealistic. There is no credible downside case. That kind of absolute certainty, that's a massive red flag that an emotional bias is at the wheel.
Okay, so we've seen how our own brains can trip us up with these thinking and feeling traps. So the big question is, what do we do about it? How do we start debugging our own financial decision-making? You know, the first step is actually super simple. It's just being aware. Just knowing that these biases exist is a huge leg up. From there, the fix you need depends on whether you're dealing with a thinking glitch from the head or a feeling glitch from the heart.
So here's a really practical 3-step way to handle this. First, try to identify the bias. Is this a head problem or a heart problem? For those thinking errors, the head stuff, you mitigate. You fight flawed logic with better logic. You actively hunt for data that proves you wrong. But for the feeling errors, the heart stuff, you have to adapt. You can't argue with the feeling. Instead, you recognize it and you build a system, like a written investment plan, to make sure your feelings don't get to make the final call.
See, once you get the difference between a thinking error and a feeling error, you can start taking back control. You go from being run by these hidden glitches to consciously managing them. So I'll leave you with this. Now that you know about these hidden glitches in your brain, which one are you going to look for first in your own decisions?